Sorry for Saying Sorry Media presents the Purr Podcast, the best podcast for feline medicine and surgery with tips, tricks, and updates for the entire veterinary healthcare team. If you're dying to know more about cats, keep on listening. Here are your hosts, Dr. Susan Little, famous cat vet and textbook author, and Dr. Jolle Kirpenstein, talented surgeon and social media geek.
Remember to not talk to you.
Yeah, she's like,
what? I know.
And then I have to, cut
and then he
and
makes hand
and
signals at me.
I know. It's just like,
Yeah.
And try not to do this kind of stuff because you see immediately that it is very sensitive. But great to have you here.
Right. Oh, did I didn't tell you the dog rule. I didn't tell the rule.
No,
you did about the wine. Yeah, you told me.
Oh, sorry, I did. I can't remember who sometimes I remember to tell people and sometimes I don't. So.
And did you get the sticker?
No, I forgot the sticker on the pin.
The beautiful.
Yeah. Yes, that's your paycheck. Awesome. Enjoy.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Don't spend it all at once.
I know. Don't spend it all at one time for sure. All right, there we go. 3, 2, 1. Hello, this is Dr. Jolle Kirpenstein.
And I'm Dr. Susan Little.
And this is the Purr Podcast live.
Yeah.
Awesome. And we have a great
we're
guest.
live anyway, yeah.
We are live. We're live. We're here.
Yeah.
And we have an awesome guest.
Yeah, we're very happy. So introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Caroline Mansfield. Nice to be here.
Yeah. And
awesome.
So, of course, we know you're from
down
Australia.
under.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're from Melbourne, one of my favorite cities, actually, right?
Yes.
So you're originally from Melbourne.
No, I'm technically from a little town called Murray Bridge in South Australia, but I grew up in Perth.
Oh,
in
you
Western
grew up
Australia,
in Perth
Western
on the other
Australia.
side.
Yes.
Perth is completely far away from Melbourne.
It's the most isolated capital city in the world.
Is it
I
really?
know, it's crazy, eh?
I've never
if you
been
think
there.
about it. Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah, I've never
It's a
been to that.
minor city, eh?
It's a big country town. Yes.
Yes, so it's a minor city.
Oh, you
So
mean
lots
minor
of
as
mining.
in small?
Oh,
mining.
Yeah,
Oh,
mining.
yeah.
mining.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
you expect everybody.
No,
There's
there's actually no mining there, but there's a lot of fly in, fly out.
Yes.
Okay.
And they have a wonderful river,
Swan River, yes.
and they have a wonderful wine making.
Wow.
Yes, I know.
You're a
I
font
love
of
Perth.
information about
It was
Perth.
wonderful. And you know who you should talk to?
Oh.
If you want to have a whole podcast about Perth for like
Yes.
40 minutes,
Yes.
Michael Day.
Does he like Perth?
Well, he's from Perth.
Oh, he.
That's why.
I did not know. My God, I've learned so much in just like 4 minutes.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Perth's,
I did not
Perth's
know.
a little epicenter
I
of
see that.
producing
Like
international
brilliant people,
veterinarians.
wow.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very Perth is probably the closest to any socialization if you look at Australia in general,
Yeah.
because it's closer to Europe
Ah.
and it's closer to. You don't have to fly for
Okay.
7 hours to get somewhere, except for probably New Zealand, then I guess. From
Yeah, like it would be. We would be more likely to fly to Asia to have holidays and to fly
yeah.
to Queensland or other parts
Yeah.
of Australia because it's quick. It's closer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're originally from Perth, and you went to vet school where?
I went to vet school at Murdoch in
Oh, in
Perth.
Murdoch, yeah.
Yep. Yep. So that was my alma
Murdoch
mater.
University.
Yeah.
Yes.
But did I not see or read somewhere that you were in Dublin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after I graduated, I worked as a mixed animal practitioner.
No way.
Yep, in South
Really?
Australia.
For how long?
Oh, that's cool.
A couple of years.
Did you
What's
like
your
it?
favorite animal
From
the mixed side?
We have lots of questions.
Well, I thought I wanted to be an equine practitioner because I guess
cool.
that was my childhood
Yeah.
dream.
Right.
But then I met horse owners.
Yeah, there's horses and there's owners. I mean, that's
yes.
true of every veterinary species, right?
Yeah.
But I
Correct.
understand what you're saying.
But
yeah.
it was a hand to mouth subsistence for a lot of the horse trainers and horse owners in South Australia.
Yeah.
So, and then we did the normal Australian backpacking thing through Europe, and I worked in small animal practice in the UK,
Oh, cool.
and then I did my residency in Dublin.
Yeah.
University.
You know,
College,
I wanted
Dublin.
to be a mixed animal practitioner.
You did?
Yes. In
I
the
thought you
early
wanted to be an
times.
archaeologist.
No, that was before that. Yeah. And
So it's very inviting, like it's the James Harriet
I know.
It
ideal, but
I
the
know.
reality doesn't match the
I know.
ideal, and
Yeah.
I wasn't using my brain.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
it was
that's
a lot
good
of
point.
fire
your
brigade
heart
stuff.
and-
Yes.
Yeah, fire engine medicine.
So I did kind of when I was a young kid. I was with a veterinarian who was kind of the James Harriet of our region. So we ran around cows in the meadows and we did
okay.
dogs on the side and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So it was a lot of fun. But then when reality hits you, it's probably not.
It's
the life.
not such a
Yeah.
good
It's
way to
not
make
the
a
life.
living.
It's
No,
yeah,
no.
Yeah,
no.
anymore.
It's physically hard, and
The hours.
the hours, and because I was in rural South Australia, it was just also the distance you had to travel and the
You're in the car
driving.
all the time, and you
Yeah.
didn't have podcasts by then.
No podcasts, no phone either. So
That's
if you broke
crazy.
down on the side of the
Oh.
road, you were stranded for hours. You know,
Wow.
that kind of stuff.
You and the
So-
kangaroos.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but hats off to the people who do it, right?
I
Absolutely.
know,
It's amazing.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So you
Absolutely.
decamped for Dublin.
Yes,
Yeah.
I decamped for Dublin, and I did my residency in small animal medicine there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Focus on.
Pancreatitis in the species that shall not
Yeah,
be
but-
named.
Oh, excellent.
Well done.
Well done. Yeah. She laid the trap. And
Well
perfect.
done.
Perfect.
Good job.
See, they always say I'm the bad one, but
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So gastroenterology, was that something you were always interested in, or did you come into that later on? How did that happen?
I was just more interested in internal medicine in general.
Yeah.
I loved the diagnostic dilemma. I loved being a detective.
That's me too.
Yeah.
That's what I love about it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
loved the problem solving and
Yeah.
figuring out
Yeah.
what was
It's a
going
mystery.
on.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
So that was what attracted me first. And-
Versus
and
the surgeons who just like to fix things, right? Yeah.
to be honest, if I hadn't done that residency, I probably would have left the profession.
No way,
Yeah.
really? Oh.
It was either that or going back and studying medicine
Yeah.
Yeah.
at that point. So I was at a
Yeah.
crossroads
Yeah.
because I wasn't enjoying general practice.
Yeah.
So it came at just the right time. I had a wonderful mentor. So Boyd Jones was my
Oh,
second
gosh.
I
mentor.
love
Yeah.
Boyd
Yeah.
Jones.
So
Oh.
he's still a very dear friend and a big part of my life. So I was very, very lucky to have him as a mentor.
Absolutely.
Amazing person.
Yeah.
And I guess I kind of fell into it. The project was, I didn't really have a choice.
Okay.
I got to be honest.
Here-
Voluntold.
Here's
the
what you do.
project.
Okay.
That's what you do. Here's your
Yes.
residency project.
Yeah.
Okay.
Congratulations. Good choice, Carolyn. Yeah.
It introduced me to, it was a lab-based project. And I hadn't done, a lot of basic science work. So in Australia, when you do veterinary science, it's an undergraduate course. So it's straight from high school into university, and it was a bachelor course. So I hadn't done, a lot of the lab-based stuff and validation and pipetting, and it was a brand new world.
Brand new world. Yeah.
Yeah, validating an assay and, designing a project that looked at, whether this diagnostic test was appropriate and so on. So it was actually it was an eye opener for me, and I think I probably enjoyed that aspect of it more so than the actual topic. But that kind of started to introduce me into the area of gastroenterology. And starting to understand that it's quite a complex organ, quite a complex system, and it affects or impacts virtually every other organ system in the body.
Yeah,
So-
it's bigger than just the GI tract, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the lab part, did you like the lab part? How do you feel about lab work?
It was a bit intimidating at
I bet.
first because we worked with an external, and at the time in Dublin, it was during the Celtic tiger boom, and so there were a lot of biotech startup companies working in Ireland at that
What is the
particular.
Celtic tiger boom?
So they had no taxes for international companies.
Yeah.
working
It's an
in Ireland.
economic initiative to get investment.
So Microsoft had the European
Yeah.
offices there, and a lot of biotech
Yeah.
startup
Google
companies.
as well.
Oh, that's
and-
cool.
Yep.
So it was a bit intimidating because I apparently I didn't have my lab coat buttoned up the right way and stuff like that.
Okay.
But the people that were there were very genuine in helping me. So that was when I was looking at trypsinogen activation peptide and trying to validate that. And it's a really quite a fragile, quite a label peptide. So it didn't like being assayed.
So lots of falling down and standing up again.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
what is happening in research. Yes.
Yeah. So it taught me a lot. I made a lot of mistakes, which I probably learnt more from than the successes in that particular project.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. There's good mistakes to make, right?
Absolutely.
Because they inform you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how long were you in Dublin?
3 years
2 years.
for my residency.
Yeah. And then you left there and went.
I went back to Perth.
Yeah.
We did via a bit of travel. Yeah. So we backpacked a little bit through Europe and Africa on the way back.
What's your favorite
yeah.
country?
Yeah.
My favourite country?
Yeah.
The backpacking thing.
Oh, Australia's my favourite country.
Good answer.
Whatever.
I always say Canada's my favorite country too. So there you go.
The Greek islands.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Beautiful, huh?
Yeah, because that's, and pre-kids, and you just sort of woke up and decided where I'm going to go today.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah. Where in Africa did you go?
Tanzania, Zanzibar, Botswana, Zambia, South Africa.
Wow.
Yeah. I've been to most of those places because I do like to visit Africa. I'm off in about 10 days to Tanzania and Kenya. So my first visit to those two
We're all
countries.
very jealous.
Yes, but I'm working hard to get there. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Work hard,
Gorgeous
play
part of the
hard.
world to visit.
And then you went to Melbourne.
I stayed in Perth for quite a few years, and I've been in Melbourne since the end of 2011.
And why did you decide to make that change?
Probably because of the research and the opportunities that Melbourne offered me in that. So the alignment with the medical precinct. So Melbourne, particularly University of Melbourne, has a really vibrant biomedical and medical research. It's probably one of the top 20 in the world. So to be able to tap into that was pretty exciting. And I think Murdoch University in Perth's pretty small. It's great, but it was quite small. And I was at my oldest child at that point was 7. And so we made the decision. We had one move.
Good time to move. When
before
it would have been too hard.
Before it got too hard.
Yeah.
And before they got all left school. So, So,
there's a point in time,
So if we were going to do it, we were going to do it then.
Yeah.
And so what is your main research focus then in Melbourne now also?
Microbiome.
And we had just a little event about the microbiome. So
You did.
Yeah.
Yes, so that's really cool.
A small 2-day event,
And there you talked about the connection between the brain and the microbiome, and mainly the microbiome of the gut.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So probably most of the what they call the gut-brain axis. Yeah. So there's some really interesting research that's been coming out in people and out of rodent models as well. So there's a bidirectional communication between the gut and the brain. So the gut microbiome communicates with the brain, and the brain communicates with the gut microbiome, and that's mediated by the vagus nerve predominantly, although there's probably some other autonomic nervous system involvement, the enteric nervous system, and the hypothalamic pituitary axis, and so mediated by cortisol, and that's probably why stress
affects your GI tract.
Why stress affects your GI tract.
Yes.
And so the brain can affect the gut microbiome by altering motility of the gut, altering intestinal permeability, the immune system, not so it doesn't alter it necessarily directly, but it does have the impacts on that, and it also potentially alters the secretions within the GI tract that can also impact the GI microbiome. And the bacteria itself also have some quite significant impacts as well. And so some of the metabolites that are produced by the bacteria, particularly some of the serotonins and tryptophan metabolites, can actually have an impact on neuron function and can impact the way that the brain reacts. And there are a lot of rodent studies that show that the microbiome impacts stress responses, cognition, memory,
Crazy.
all sorts of things, which it would be really lovely to think I could just take a pill and I'm smarter and smarter and
Less
faster and less
stress.
stress.
And your bowel function works better.
Yeah.
That's all in one. But I think that
But it doesn't quite translate. But yeah.
So you talked about this research in people and in rodents, probably not that much in cats, but we do know that stress is a big problem in cats. So
Absolutely.
it's logical that probably is also playing a role in cats.
Yeah, so probably I guess the situations that we would see that the most in is probably in the shelter situations, and the incidence of diarrhea in shelter cats is huge, and the numbers vary, but it's at least sort of 30 to 50%, if not higher, and the duration. And there's been a lot of work that's looked at probiotics to reduce the diarrhea, but not so much that's looked at using probiotics to reduce stress and stress anxiety scores. And part of that's because it's actually quite hard to assess their stress. Even using, observational analogues, cats can adapt quite quickly, and it can be really hard to tell whether they're stressed.
Especially because these are animals that you never saw unstressed, right? You kind of don't know what their normal is like, right? So it can be hard.
On the outside also, I think in cats, they might be stressed, but they don't look stressed. So,
or they're not as obvious, So
there are subtle changes to their behavior.
And even like measuring markers such as serum cortisol, by the mere act of restraining them to take the blood sample, you are stressing them and you're changing that. So, we can look at salivary cortisol if we need to, but even that potentially has some diurnal variation, and it can be very, very difficult to assess.
Yeah. So that's going to be one of the most challenging populations to look at, though, for things like microbiome research or stress research, has to be the shelter population, right? Yeah. Yeah. So you started with like the easy ones, I can tell.
And I think the other question that we actually really haven't answered is the stress in client-owned animals. If they... the stress of separation and the stress of coming into a new home. So the ones that are adopted by a shelter, it's stressful coming into a new house.
Yeah, every change is stressful.
Every change is a stress. And if you combine that stressful event with an antibiotic administration as well, at a time when the microbiome is developing, which is also when the central nervous system is developing, so in that window up to about 3 months of age, is when the microbiome is its most labile. We actually don't know what impact that has. So if you have that stressful event, you often have diet changes as well, because you're moving environments, stress. This often when the cats also potentially will have upper respiratory tract signs or develop signs of cat flu, and appropriately or not, might be administered antibiotics as a result of that, or they develop diarrhea, and again, appropriately or inappropriately, might be administered antibiotics, and we don't know what impact that has on their long-term GI microbiome and long-term health as a result.
We traditionally haven't put much thought into that, have we?
No.
You don't know what you don't know. I was chatting with one of the other speakers at the event we're talking about that happened a few days ago with a lot of microbiome presentations, who said, it was Jan Sukadolski, who said to me, once the microbiome really gets messed up, it's very hard to walk it back and say you can ever consistently make it normal again. So his thought is more that we need to preserve and try to protect the microbiome, that we really need to have some, good efforts there. So I guess he's just more skeptical about, once you get very disrupted, can we actually ever normalize you again?
Yeah, I'm going to disagree slightly with him. So Jan and I sometimes disagree.
Sure, a little bit. It's healthy discourse.
Yes.
That's fine.
So when and it's the same with people, and I presume it's the same with animals, and again with some of the non-feline work that we're doing.
Well done.
If an animal has enteropathy, or a person has Crohn's disease or something like that, inherently they have an unstable microbiome.
Right.
Okay, so their microbiome is unstable, and you give them an antibiotic, it will change and it won't come back to normal. And so by default, those ones are... They will never come back to normal. And I think those are the ones that Jan is referring to.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about. Yes.
Yeah. If you have an animal with a relatively healthy or a stable microbiome, they don't particularly have gut disease or an issue, they're the ones that are potentially more likely to return to normal.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
But the question, I guess, is whether you have a normal microbiome established by the right age.
Yeah, and so this is a very interesting area to me, because it's made me much more cautious about what we do with young kittens, right? Because it is the time when, a lot is developing, not just your microbiome.
Yeah, your brain's developing, and your gut microbiome is helping your brain develop. And that's also potentially when behavioural issues start.
Yes, it's a complex time, right?
Yeah.
So
And sorry, can I just also ask?
Yeah.
Because the other thing that I noticed that, and I've had it in the back of my mind, and I've never actually done anything about it. But one of the comments that quite often is made to me is that bottle-reared kittens always have behavioural issues.
This is very common. Yeah.
And so then I say, well, why? And is
Yeah.
that because they don't have a normal microbiome? Because they're not doing the normal suckling and the normal grooming by the mother, and they don't therefore have a normal gut microbiome being established.
If you would pull that,
That's
because a lot of
fascinating.
babies are bottle fed too, and do you think that
human
because,
babies.
Yeah, because it is pretty much accepted that, you know, a lot of people want to be breastfeeding for a long time, but there's also people that say, you know, only the first couple of weeks and then we're going to the bottle.
That's
So
interesting.
no, the World Health Organization recommends breastfeeding minimum of 1 year now.
Yeah.
So that's
Part of that's
absolutely-
because water quality
Sure.
and hygiene is not guaranteed around the world.
Sure. Sure.
But part of that recommendation is the fact that you will decrease the risk of immune-mediated diseses if you
Better
breastfeed.
ask my mom how long she breastfed me.
Yeah. But you know that's something that I never thought of before, this link with orphan kittens, and because it is, you know, people commonly say they have behavior problems,
Wow.
and we always ascribed it to the fact that they're raised as an orphan, right? So they're not raised.
So
with
they're
their,
demanding, you know.
you
Yeah.
know, but also they're not raised around other cats, so they don't have anybody to teach them. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't conspecifics really to teach them. But it might be more complex than that, right?
It's probably
Yeah.
multifactorial.
Yeah, it probably is.
It always is. It's never just the microbiome.
So the
Yes.
question I have is, we have had veterinary medicine now for 200 years. Why did it take 200 years for us to start focusing on the microbiome? Because it's something of the last 5 years that it's coming up.
You know, I'm not sure that it wasn't there before. You know, so I was speaking to one of my colleagues who's a wildlife vet, and she said, well, we were talking about transformation in rabbits 20 years ago. You know, so potentially it's been around. It just
Didn't have that name, maybe.
didn't have that name.
Yeah.
And maybe antibiotics weren't used as much in
Weren't
veterinary
used as
medicine.
much. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I think it's not only in veterinary medicine, it's in human medicine too.
Absolutely, it's
With
the
the
same.
Human Microbiome Project, and you know, everything now suddenly it's like this favorite topic to talk about because it's everywhere.
But it has to be. So, I mean, asthma in the first world is one of the biggest issues. There's been huge spikes in asthma in children, and you know, the question is why? Is it to do with air pollution? Is it to do with anything else? And one of the theories is it's, you know, a lot of children are not being breastfed. They're being born by cesarean. They're being given antibiotics when they're young. They're being kept, you know,
In a very hygienic world,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So, you know, that was my philosophy raising my children.
Let them eat dirt.
Yeah. No,
And how is your immune system?
that's pretty good.
But
Yeah.
do bottle-raised kittens have more asthma?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
See, these are some interesting things to follow up on now that you start, you know, asking. You got to ask the questions, right?
Yeah.
Once you start asking the question, it could be really interesting to see what are the long-term consequences of these
So
hand-raised kittens.
there's been a study that actually came out of Canada. I think it came out of Canada. And so there's 4 particular bacteria, and I forget their exact names, but it's FLVR, so Veronobacterium and one Lactobacterium, and then there must be a FECO and another R,
Yeah.
so FLVR. And if babies get those bacteria in their fecal microbiome by the age of 4 months, they have a massively decreased incidence of asthma later in life.
Wow.
So would it be
So
interesting?
it doesn't matter if they're bottle fed or
Right.
if they're
Yeah,
delivered,
of
it's
course,
how
of
they're
course.
delivered. But if they get
you
those,
get them,
you're all right.
however you get them.
Yeah.
So, you know, it starts to make you wonder, are there like key species like that,
Correct.
you know, in feline medicine that, you know, we need to be, if it's an orphan kitten, we need to make sure they get it, or we need to make sure we don't disrupt it. So,
Correct.
Yeah. So, you know, the whole idea of protecting your microbiome fits really well into the point we are in veterinary medicine, where we're trying to do better antimicrobial stewardship, right? So I think those two things go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really important, I think, initiative, right?
Yeah.
So we don't want to run out of antibacterials. We want to use them wisely. But now, as we're learning, there's some actually benefits to that animal potentially, right? Not to be disrupting their biome.
Yeah.
This was awesome. So thank you for the first part of the podcast, the Purr Podcast. And we got already quite a lot of information. I'm excited that we get even more in the second, which is in 2
there's
weeks.
more to talk to. Such a fascinating field. And more questions and answers, right? But there's a lot for us to talk about. And we're really blessed to have somebody who's right in the thick of it to give us the inside scoop on what's going on in microbiome research. So we're really grateful you're here.
That was a good pun. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you
I'm glad
very
you
much.
caught that.
Thank you so much.
No problem. It's a pleasure.
Dr. Susan Little is a feline medicine specialist with 2 cat-only hospitals in Ottawa, Canada. She is best known as an international speaker and as the author and editor of 2 textbooks, The Cat, Clinical Medicine and Management, and August, Consultations in Feline Internal Medicine. Along with 3 cats, she also admits to owning 2 dogs, and you can follow her on social media with the handle @CatVetSusan. Dr. Jolle Kirpenstein is a diplomate of the American and European College of Veterinary Surgeons and a big cat fan. His specialties range from surgical oncology and reconstruction to minimally invasive surgery. He is the author of 2 textbooks on basic and reconstructive surgery. Did you know he was allergic to cats? Jolle works currently at Hills Pet Nutrition. You can follow him on social media with the handle @GVETSX. The opinions of this podcast are those by Dr. Susan Little and Dr. Jolle Kirpenstein. Veterinary medicine is a complex profession, and often there are multiple diagnostic and therapeutic options for different disease processes. If you're a pet owner with questions, please go to your local veterinarian. If you're a veterinary professional, ask your questions on our Instagram page @Purr Podcast.